only human and we all get sick from time to time, and how we deal with that being poorly, unfortunately, also comes down to the fact that we're humans. And if you're in a particularly good block of training at the time, it can have a big mental impact on how you're going to approach it. It's easy to wake up in the morning and feel sick, and 24 hours later think that all the training that you've been working so hard on, all that block of work that you've been enjoying and focusing on and getting the benefits of, is all gone in an instant. But of course that's not true. It's just our mind playing tricks on us. How we react to stuff compared to how we respond to stuff, well, that's human nature, isn't it? As much as we'd like to think that we're logical beings, we're not really. Often our first reaction to things is an emotional one. Last week, as I was approaching the end of my 6-week block of training, and I was really excited to take a look at my ramp test and see where my lactate levels were, and everything had been going really, really well. Lunchtime at work, I literally felt a cold coming on, and by the end of the day I had a full-blown head cold. And what I'm talking about here is not kind of illness, it's just a cold. We often say, don't we, that it's okay to train if something's above the neck. Anything below the neck you need to stop training. But I decided instantly to stop training. And in the meantime, I've been thinking about 3 different ways, 3 different things to think about perhaps when we're not feeling on top of our game, and it might be more sensible just to stop training for a bit. And it fits around the RPE idea, but not how we normally think of it, as rate of perceived exertion. Let's take a look at what I think RPE should be when we're not feeling on top form. R is probably the most obvious one. It stands for rest and recovery. Now, my sleep patterns are actually pretty good normally. If you take a look at these graphs from Garmin Connect, you'll see that over the previous weeks leading up to being poorly, my sleep was pretty average, pretty good for the majority of the population. But if we look at the last week, when I wasn't very well, it fell through the floor. Now, sleep is obviously such a massive weapon when it comes to training. We need that to recover, because we don't get stronger when we're training, we actually get weaker. It's only when we rest our body adapts and we get stronger and fitter. Hello. Whenever anyone overtakes me like that, I always have to check to see if they got a battery. God, it's like being overtaken by Beryl Burton, that was. And frankly, through the entire week of being poorly, my sleep wasn't great. I was waking up in the night, I couldn't breathe properly. All the same things that go with it. It makes it difficult. So what I had to do. Go on, Sam. You right? So what we have to do is look for other areas to find some rest and recovery. Simple things like reducing screen time, reading a book, going to bed a little earlier. So even if you only get the same amount of sleep, it's spread out over a longer period of time. Maybe just get that little bit extra rest in the morning, and cancelling or avoiding anything that you don't really need to do. Simple things like I would go out of my way to make sure I was eating my lunch away from colleagues, and just having a little bit of time to get some headspace, more so than I normally would. And generally just making sure you do take that downtime. It's very easy in the workplace, I think, for people that work in an office environment, or even, I remember when I was a carpenter, you just keep going. It felt easier to carry on than it was to stop. But when you're not feeling great, there's little breaks in that workload, not just physically but mentally too, are really important. But how you spend that time is equally as important. Just go off, find yourself a quiet spot, eat your food, and get on with just getting that mind rested. Speaking of food, eating properly, making sure you're getting plenty of water on board is the obvious thing, and I don't need to tell you about that, I'm sure. But one thing just to keep a little eye on, particularly when you're feeling tired, is kind of a slight increase in caffeine. Found the temptation, possibly out of a little bit of monotony because I wasn't training and kind of getting that excitement from different areas, and also possibly because I was fatigued, found myself reaching for the coffee machine possibly a little bit more often than I normally would. So just keep a little eye on the caffeine. So rest and recovery, part 1, and probably the most obvious one. This next one is actually harder than it appears at first glance. How many of us actually feel even remotely motivated to look on something like Strava when we're not feeling very well and can't train? but it's a prime opportunity when you're not feeling very well to refine your planning and your research for adventures that you've been thinking of having, or possibly have thought up and need to do a little bit more work on. And maybe you don't have the time to do that normally because you're busy training, or perhaps you should be training but you end up doing too much time on it. When you're not feeling very well, it's a good opportunity to get stuck into watching documentaries, not just about the bike side of things, but looking at the areas or the environments and the cultures and the people and the places you're going to immerse yourself a little bit more and accentuate that adventure, but also planning routes, looking at equipment choices, absolutely everything and anything you can think of to kind of get that idea off the ground, or to generate and spark those ideas to create another adventure for yourselves. Morning. Those of you that follow the channel will know I don't like getting the bus into work, and I don't drive into work. If I can't get in there under my own steam, I'm not happy bunny. But obviously when you're not well, it changes your routine somewhat and you have to just compromise, but you don't have to compromise in a negative fashion. So the lack of sleep, the fact I was waking up early in the morning, the fact I couldn't ride my bike to work because the commute meant I had to get the bus, and it also meant that I had the opportunity, if I thought about it in a positive way, to use that chance to get up early, get the earlier bus, get off the bus and walk in from a lot further away than I normally would, and just take an opportunity to explore. Now I know the city of Bristol inside out. I used to go to school right in the city centre, and when I used to finish school I used to go and explore the warehouses and the docks and the sidings of the railways, and there's not much of Bristol I don't know. So I made it a plan to try and see how far I could get from the bus stop to work, on a route that I'd never been along before. And not only did I find some amazing alleyways and roadways and paths and views and vistas that I've never experienced in Bristol before. In fact, one of them is just up there on the left. Never been down the alleyway before in my life. I also saw some insane graffiti that riding my bike. I went in that church as well. It's built into the city wall. I ended up seeing so many sights in Bristol that I'd just never seen before because I'm too busy looking out for pedestrians and buses and taxis and scooters that are trying to take me out, or I might take out because I'm looking at the graffiti. And because I wasn't able to train, it meant I was getting some sort of low-level exercise. I was able to get some steps in, upwards of, well, nearly 20,000 steps a day, far more than I normally would do. Felt like I was just getting some kind of movement going on in the body. And sometimes it takes a break of a habit to actually try and observe what's going on around you. You need to open your eyes, get your head out your phone to be able to do that. So on the bus side, kind of purposely just put a podcast or some gentle music on, nothing too chaotic, because I was trying to still use that as a rest and recovery time, but it meant I just had time to think and sort of think about where I might walk, maybe look at some maps, try and plot a new route and just get some sort of level of adventure and excitement in, where normally you think of it as being a big negative. And whilst in general I may have felt a bit miserable not being able to do the training that I had planned, it meant these little approaches gave me a focus, gave me a way of making sure I got something positive out of the experience. And in fact, when I did feel better, I got myself out, did a 5k, ran the fastest 5k I've run in well over a year now. That's not as impressive maybe as it sounds, because I haven't been able to run very much, but it felt amazing, felt absolutely amazing. You know what to do, hit the subscribe button, notifications bell, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below, and until next video, take good care of yourselves.